this computer.
Yeah, I don't know. Any CE thing like that is always what I forget to do until part-time into it. Even with my like notes with what I'm supposed to say on the top in big letters, press record.
Yeah, I've done it.
I still forget.
I've done it. Okay, so here we go. So I'm actually starting on, this is EmpireADC.org. This is the homepage that the public visits the web, you know, the finding aids. And the reason I want to start here is just so you know, you can always log in to the creation system from this page in the footer. Okay, because in the, you should have gotten an automated email when I set up your account, and it, you know, it gives you a link to the creation system, but you can always come here. You don't have to remember that URL. So, and they are two separate systems. And I think that's an important thing to know, like the front end system where the public comes here to work with the finding aids is a completely separate piece of software than the software I'm about to show you where you create them. We've done our best to make them work together. But one thing I'll just tell you now, in case I forget, because this is kind of important, is that when you publish a finding aid from the backend system, and I'm going to show you how to do that, this site is set to index every night starting at 4 o'clock. Okay, so if you publish a finding aid, you won't see it in this front end system right away. All right, if you don't see it the next day, then you need to let me know, because there could be something wrong. And I'm going to tell you a couple things that you can troubleshoot if that happens when we get there. But that's an important thing. I don't have that well documented, and I need to update the documentation because I often get a lot of calls for like, I just published a finding aid, it's not there. So I will update the documentation, but just so you know, it should be 24 hours later. But again, if you publish after 4 o'clock, it might be a whole nother day. Okay, so.
And does that mean access to the URL for the finding aid would also not be until it was actually published?
Yes, the public finding aid.
Yes.
So there is a way in the backup system where you can view your own finding aid, and it has its own URL, but it's a different URL. So yes, in terms of the public facing URL, yes, it'll take a whole, and once that, you don't get that URL until it's actually been published into this site.
Okay, because that's what we use to, we included it on our records.
Yep, and so we'll look at that. We'll, if I forget, remind me at the end.
Okay.
But yeah, you would grab the URL from here and not from the creation system. Okay.
Got it.
So
All right.
48 hours. All right.
Yeah. And then if you don't see it, like give it 2 days. And if you don't see it online, then something happened. This system, when it's indexing, it'll catch errors, and it usually flags the very first one. It sees. What we haven't been able to develop yet is for that error to come all the way back into the creation system, so you know, right? It's Zach, my systems manager. If something goes wrong, he can go look and see. That's something we need to develop, is better reporting tools for you all. But right now, the workflow is, if you don't see it in 2 days, call me, and then we'll figure out what happened. So, okay, so I am going to log in. So contributor login right from the homepage, EmpireADC. All right, that's fun. I tested this.
No, I think you used your Gmail address.
Yeah, no, this is my, okay, I just keyed in something wrong.
Oh, okay.
This is my account typed to my work email is the admin account, and it looks very different. So I don't like, I don't like to train on that one.
The wrong email, but I'm already wrong.
No, I typed in the password wrong, which is why I hunt and peck passwords, because I try to get it right the first time. But anyway, so you're logged in, and it will look something like this. Okay. There, I do have, if you click the documentation tab, there is print documentation. Okay, we have, their Google Docs, and one is kind of a step-by-step through the form. That's this one, with a little bit of intellectual, guidance, but not a lot. It kind of gives a brief description of the field, and then it really tells you how to work with the form tool. This one is the best practices doc. So this gives you a little more detail about how to use an element and some examples and guidelines. Okay, and then we also do have some video tutorials here. There's a playlist, and the playlist covers each page of the form. So if you're stuck on one page, you could just come here and click. Okay, and then I also have a little demo for how to edit your inventories once they're up, and that might mean nothing to you right now. So don't worry, we'll come back to that. Okay, but this is your documentation page. I'm also here to help you. And if you have questions about kind of the intellectual work, you've got Lori there. And then you've also got Susan, who is an archivist, and you can ask questions. Okay, I'm not an archivist, so sometimes I'm not the best person to ask.
Supposedly next week, I have a meeting on Friday about this. Friday. We are going to be, we meaning Empire State Library Network, is going to be piloting an Ask the Archivist service. So, so you could also, I mean, you could just contact me directly, but I'm just saying, you know, there's going to be this too, if you have a question that you don't like my answer to.
We're very excited about that service, especially me, because I'm not an archivist, and sometimes I get questions that I can't really answer. So I have to go find an archivist to answer them.
I haven't worked as an archivist for a long time, so I'm kind of like, we'll see how this goes.
But you know some things.
I do know some things. Yes, indeed.
All right. So again, this is your documentation page. And as we roll out more documentation, it'll all be here for you. There is this support button, and that launches kind of a support ticketing system if you're having problems. But right now, I just recommend that you come directly to me. If you're having any technical issues, to bypass the support, just email me directly. Okay. All the work happens under the tools menu. Okay. So when you click tools, you get two options. You add an EmpireADC finding aid that launches the form where you start a new finding aid. And then you've got my content, and that's where all of your saved finding aids go. Okay, we'll come back to this in a minute, but I'm going to click on it just right now on my content. And here's all of my test finding aids I've created. And so from here, I can edit any that I've created already, whether they're published or not. I can go in and make edits at any time. You can publish and unpublish from here. And I think you can also delete. You should be able to delete. Why can't I delete? That's weird. We'll look at that in a minute, because you should be able to delete a finding aid. So, okay, but let's launch the form, because that's where the fun stuff is. So I'm going to go to tools, and I'm going to add EmpireADC finding aid. And this launches the form. Okay. The form is broken up into multiple pages. All right. The first page is finding aid info, and most of this should be pre-populated for you based on your account profile. Okay, so it's going to have all your publisher information and all this other information down here. There's three things you need to do on this page. You need to give the finding aid a title. Okay, I'm just winging it. All right, we're not going to do anything real here. Okay, and then the finding aid author. Now, if you're starting from scratch with a finding aid, then you're the author. If you're working with a finding aid that Lori created or somebody else, you can list Lori or whoever, if you know who the author is. If you don't know, you can just say Saratoga Springs Public Library is the author. Again, if you're working from an existing one that doesn't name a person. And this is a free text field. So like, let's say you revised it. So let's say I started it. You could do something like this, revised by Susan D 2022.
What I did with ours is I put just Saratoga room staff on them.
Okay.
Because I just felt like I didn't need any of the credential, you know, to show it to anybody.
Yep.
But if someone newer in their career, I would recommend use your name.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you're actually writing it, Michelle, or if you have an intern too, I would put the intern's name on there if they help you with it, because like what Lori said, it's heaven for your resume.
Right. Now, this information does not display to the public.
Oh, it does not.
No, it's stored in the file at the back end. Yeah, but there for this information, because this is all in what's called the EAD header.
Oh, so, okay.
Right?
But you can put it in.
But there is, hold that thought. Remind me that you want to give people credit, because there's another place to do it that actually is public. So we will address that in just a minute. But thank you for bringing this up, because most of this information does not display.
Yeah, and actually, so that's a good point. Like Lori, instead of putting staff, if this isn't showing up, you could put it in there because like your staff might need to know who actually wrote this.
Yeah.
Especially if they want to say like, why did you do this? No. Or so just put it staff then, I guess, maybe.
Yeah. But again, we'll talk about where to give people credit for the work they do on a collection. Okay. Because that's somewhere else. So again, finding a title, finding a author, and then scroll down to the bottom. Everything else should be filled in for you. And we have this field here for assigning either a public domain dedication or a Creative Commons license to the finding aid. So this is not expressing how the collection can be used, only the finding aid. I highly recommend releasing your metadata into the public domain, but that's me, right? You can assign one of this. And again, right now, this does not display to the public, but this is a new required element in the national standard for describing archives. So I want us to start recording it, and in the hopes that we can update our front end display system to read it. Okay, and I'll spare you all the details about that, but I do want people to start using this. So I'm going to go ahead and select public domain dedication. So, all right, so that's page 1. All right, let's talk about saving. You'll see this quick save button at the bottom of each page when you're working on a finding aid for the first time. Okay, you'll see quick save. You can hit the quick save button at any time, but also when you navigate the form using these buttons at the top, it will perform a quick save automatically. So I'm going to go ahead and just click page 2. And then I should get this message over here that says my progress has been stored. Okay, I want to talk about what a quick save is. A quick save will save your data to the form. Okay. Quick save does not save your finding aid to your My Content page. All right, that is done at a later step in the process, and we'll talk about that obviously. But the quick save means, like, let's say somebody needs you on the desk and you're in the middle of this, or you got called into a meeting, right? You can close down the system entirely. You can come back in, and when you click Tools, Add EmpireADC Finding Aid, it will launch the form with that data. Okay, that you've entered so far. It only works on the same machine that you started with. So if you started one here, Michelle, like on your machine, and it's just saved with a quick save, Lori can't access it from her account from another machine. Okay, it uses browser cookies and it just saves the data there. And it's supposed to only save it for 7 or 10 days. It's in the documentation. So it's really not designed to hold your work for a long time. It's designed for you're having a busy day, you're having a busy couple days. Okay, at any time, as long as you have, there's 3 things you need filled in. Anything with a red asterisk, and we don't have a lot of them. There's 2 right here. And then I think there's 1 on page 1, maybe the publisher information, which is pre-populated for you. Okay, so essentially, once you're on page 2 and you give the collection a title, you can fully save the finding aid, and then it goes into your My Content page. Okay, so we've had a little confusion about quick saves, and people get a little confused. So about like accessing it from different machines, it's only on your machine. It's only for a short time. If you're about to go on vacation, make sure you save that. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But let's give it a title. Okay, so page 2 of the form is really the heart of the work. These are our required fields. Like, I didn't hard code the requirements with these red asterisks because that would make everybody crazy, but we ask you to fill out this page as fully as possible to create a good EmpireADC finding aid. Okay. One thing you can leave blank if you don't do this locally is this field collection ID. So this is where you would put your local identifiers. Do you have an identification system, accession numbers, collection numbers?
The ID, is that our 3 prefix that we have to use?
No, that's like on the item level, but at the collection level, we haven't used an ID other than the name of the collection.
Okay, and that's here. Okay, so
Okay.
you can leave this field blank. All right. If you don't have a local identification system at the collection level, this is the one that you're allowed to leave blank.
I think that would be, we don't need that.
No.
All right.
Well, a lot of people don't. So we include it for people who do, but you don't have to use it. Okay, so then let's scroll down. Language of the material. So obviously this is the language of the collection items when you're working with documents. It's a drop-down menu. It defaults to English. It already has it selected for you. You can change it. You can also select multiples. So if you have English and Dutch, just hold down your control key and you select more, okay? Abstract is just a couple sentences that summarize the who, the what, the where, the when of the collection. Abstracts show up with brief record results. When people search, they see a title, they see a date, maybe extent, and an abstract. So it's an important piece of information. If you don't have it, it'll take the first few sentences of your scope note, but sometimes those first few sentences really don't get at the heart of what is in the collection. So this is where you know, who created it, what's in it, just a brief couple sentences. Okay. Now, when you first, I'm going to close all these up because the very first time you launch the form, all of these elements in these expandable fields will be like this for you. So you're going to open them. And I'm just going to walk you down one at a time, right? Physical description. There's a few drop downs here that we ask you to fill out. This is basically the size of the collection. So the first thing you need to do, and everywhere you see a plus sign or a minus sign, plus sign, it means the field is repeatable. Okay, so at the very, Lori, I don't know what your practice is. I probably should have looked at some of your finding aids first, but at the very least, you would do something like this. The whole collection, space occupied, how big it is, and then you can do like 10 linear feet, or if you do cubic feet, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, I really like this because some of the collections have different, you've got a box and then you've got a flat box and then you've got a map, and
Yep.
this affords you that ability to, make those distinctions.
Absolutely. And it's great. So use it as you need to use it. So if you wanted to say something about the whole collection and its size, but as Lori's saying, then you can click this and you can say part of the collection is in carrier 1 map drawer. Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to do a few things here just to kind of show you some of what people have. Let's just say it's a collection of 50 letters, right? You could say the whole collection is material type 50 letters or photographs. Okay. So do what you need to do here. Don't make yourself crazy, but it's here for you to say what you need to say. I think maybe with like the brief record results on the front end, it might only show the first one. So if you are going to do multiple statements, make sure your first one kind of summarizes the whole collection to the best of your ability, right?
I have a question. So, but you can do like, I understand the whole and the part. The whole is whatever size, but you can also do whole and whole. Like, let's say it's 1 linear feet, and you also know it's 200 records,
Absolutely.
200 letters.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. And again, my recommendation is just make the first one what you really want users to see. What's the most important thing for them to understand about the size of the collection. Then you can do anything else you want from there. I think they all display once you're looking at the record, but in the brief record results, we do have extent and they only see the first one. So, so that's that. There is this physical description note if you need to say anything else kind of about the size or, kind of the characteristics of the collection, but this does not display to the public, but this could be an internal note for something you needed to say. Right?
And I was researching, so I'd know where to pull everything.
Mhm.
Yeah, like if you needed to say that there's a box under Lori's desk, like you could say that. Not my first rodeo, people. All right, so let's talk about dates. So that's your extent information. We'll close that up and we'll talk about dates. Okay, when you expand the date element, you have an option to do inclusive dates and bulk dates. Okay, inclusive dates are what we require. Use bulk dates if you need them. Do you know the difference? Do you know? Yeah. Okay. So, and both of these work exactly the same. So I'm just going to focus on inclusive dates right now. What I show you, all the same rules apply for bulk dates. It defaults to this free form date, which is just kind of a free text date field, but I highly recommend you either select date or date range. Those give you standard dates, and then all your dates are searchable. So typically, you know, inclusive date. Well, sometimes you might have a collection that just is about one day, but let's do a date range. So I'm going to click that, and then you get this date picker, which you can use. You can also just key in your dates. But when you use date or date range, you have to use that standard date. So let's say I'm just going to do a date range here that has an actual, so June 1910 to 2000 October, right? Lots of times we just have years, but I just wanted to show you that if you are going to overwrite your date, not use the date picker, the dates have to be in this format.
What if you don't know the month?
No, yeah, and oftentimes we don't. So I just wanted to show you, oftentimes you don't. So don't use it. You can just do this. Okay. So let's look at it like at a single date, because maybe that'll make more sense. So let's say you have a collection that's about an event that happened on one day. What I'm saying is you can't like type in January. Like I'm starting to type January and it won't let me, right? I can only do numbers here. So I have to do 1910, 01, 05. So January 5th, 1910. Okay. Now you can use, like, let's say you can do this. And if it's a known date, then you don't have to use the free-form date field. But if it's really an approximate date, you could do approximately. Okay, so we have it here for good date searching. And then we can do this if we want to. And then this is what would display to the user. So they would see approximately that it's an approximate date, but then you'd be able to search on that date range. Okay. All right. Same rules apply down here with bulk dates, everything I just showed you. And again, repeatable. I have seen some crazy date information in finding aids. Like, you know, there's this date range and then there's a single date and then there's another date range. And so you can do that, right? Just click the plus sign, you get a whole nother date field and you can do what you need to do. All right. So that's how that works. And again, only use bulk dates if you need them. Okay, let's just close that up, get it out of our way. All right, collection creator. Again, kind of another complex element, again, repeatable. If you have more than one creator, just click the plus sign and you get a whole nother creator element. The first thing you do with the creator element is select whether it's a personal, corporate, or family name. So we'll do personal in this case. And when you start typing, and you're going to want to, if it's a personal name, you're going to want to start typing the last name first.
Okay.
Okay. And when you do, it will start searching the Library of Congress name authority file.
Great.
Okay. And if your person's in there, you select them. And then their ID goes in. Okay. If they are not in the authority file, that is fine. You just type it in. Okay. And then you don't get a URL, obviously. Creator role is optional, but this is where you can distinguish between donors, collectors, and actual creators of the content. And again, as you start typing, it searches the Library of Congress related terms. I click on creator and I get the URL. Okay, that's how that works. And again, repeatable. So if you have multiple creators, click the plus sign, do it all over again. Okay. Those are kind of the complex elements. The rest are just free text fields. So that's your admin, your biographical history, right? Information about the creators. Every paragraph needs to be in its own box. Okay, so if you have multiple paragraphs, and I have a little note under here, but it's easy to miss. So click the plus sign, get more boxes. Paragraph 1. And if you're working with like a PDF or a Word document, you can copy and paste into here. Okay. Scope and content, same thing, same rules apply. So this is information about the collection, what's in it, you know, highlights, formats, all the things, you know. And again, plus sign for more than one paragraph. Paragraph 1. I'm spelling things wrong, but that's okay. Paragraph something. Okay. Access restrictions. This is, you know, open by appointment or available appointment only, or open for research Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, or any restrictions that you have. You know, sometimes there might be certain elements that are restricted, you know, maybe they have health information or whatever it is. You can say that here. So box 5 is not available, you know, whatever. And Susan, jump in at any time if I say anything that's wrong. Okay. And then use restrictions is kind of your copyright statement, how things can actually be used. And some people just have kind of boilerplate language here, contact the archivist. You know, this collection has a mix of copyright statuses, you know, maybe if it's all in the public domain, you can say that this collection is in the public domain, whatever you need to say.
Now, can you also in that field put in things like, I know some institutions have collections that can't be photocopied because they're too fragile or whatever. Or is this just for copyright information?
Well, I mean, you would know better than I about that, but I think
Oh, okay. So you're saying it's the,
I
yeah.
think I think it's very important to let them know
Yeah.
that. So
or
I would
like
go ahead and
sometimes it's, well, that would be under access restrictions. If it's in a
access-
different building.
things
it
like
would be-
that, or
yeah,
stored off site. You know, you need to,
Yeah.
I mean, there's actually other fields for some of that. It gets a little weird, but
Yeah. Because I'm thinking, or there's like some, I guess it's really more of it. Okay. I'll have to go back and look at the
yeah, that's a good question.
the guidelines, because I don't remember how it works, because there's also use, like there's an access restriction. There are ones where like there are things that aren't really copyright, but there are other restrictions.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I can't remember which goes in which.
Yeah, the thing about can't be copyrighted, I mean, can't be copied, that's interesting. And to me personally, I've actually seen these used opposite. I've seen all kinds of stuff in these fields. So say what you need to say, like say what's important for the users to know before they contact you.
I guess
right?
that's true, because this will just come up as text. It doesn't really matter what field.
Right.
The user doesn't really care what field
Right.
it's in. Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's really important. If you can't make photocopies of something, put it somewhere here, right? So good question. But that's how these work. And again, same rules apply. If you have multiple paragraphs, they need to be in their own boxes. Okay, so we're almost done with page 2. The last thing is your repository information. And again, that should be pre-populated for you based on your account profile. Okay. And this information, this repository information, so it goes into the record, but this is not where we pull repository information from for the front end. We store that separately. So we have this repository URL field, and you can go ahead and put it in if you want. But again, we're not pulling from here for what's on the front end. We have your web addresses stored elsewhere, and they apply to everything. But if you do put a URL in here, you have to have the https:/, or it'll yell at you. Okay. But you can just leave it blank, because we do present that to the user somewhere else. Okay. So you're almost finished.
So a
go
question
ahead.
for you then, for like, why would someone want to use that field then? Like what internal?
We plan to share, like for our contributors who want to submit to the national finding aid aggregation that's being built right now, because we're going to facilitate that for you. So maybe it would be a good idea to have it in there.
Okay.
So that it
'Cause I
goes
was just
along
like-
with that record. It's really for sharing and for internal use.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So we just didn't populate these for you. And, you know, URLs change all the time. So like, and my guess is the national project will also store repository information separately from the finding aids. And the reason we do that is so we can update it once. If your address changes, if your name changes, organizations change their names all the time, we can just have that one place that we have to update. And I think the national project is doing that well. So doing that as well. So you can just leave the URL out of here is kind of where I'm going with that. Okay. So if you fill out page 2, you're almost finished creating an EmpireADC finding aid. But page 3 is where you do your indexing terms, your controlled access heading. So your subjects, any names associated with the collection, formats, and this is, we index them. And on the front end, if you've seen, we have facets, right? So people can narrow down a set of results by these terms. We only ask you to assign at least one. So not one in every category, just one. But do as many as you need, okay? So it all starts with deciding what access points you're going to add. So let's say we want to add some subjects. So you click subjects, and then you get these options. You can look up these vocabularies right through the form. So we've got Library of Congress subject headings. We have MESH for the medical archives, and you can look up Wikidata, which is kind of fun. And then you can, every category gives you a local option. So you can do local headings, okay? But let's look at Library of Congress so I can show you how that works. This is not keyword searchable. It's left anchored searching. So sometimes it helps to go out to the Library of Congress online and search for your term, grab it and copy it in here. Because like if I start searching Civil War, it's not going to give me the string United States -- history -- Civil War. It's going to give me every heading that starts with Civil War.
Is this like, is it kept up to date? I just asked this because I got my Library of Congress subject headings newsletter this week, and I did notice that one new heading is something like apocalyptic TV or something. So I didn't know. Apocalypse in television. That was it. Okay, because there it is in numismatics and music, art, literature. Okay, so it's not.
It should be. I don't know if it's storing this is something I need to ask Diego if it's searching in real time or if we're caching this somehow. Because we are,
like I said, this was a newsletter that came out this week, so
okay.
It would be.
But that's something I'd want to know too.
Yeah,
because I thought it was searching it in real time, but it may be that periodically we download and we cache it and store it somewhere else on the server. But another thing to know about this is if you are typing. So if I wanted that United States history, Civil War, I have to do the dashes, I have to do everything. Okay. And then I'll start to get it. And it only shows you 10 results, right? So this is again, where sometimes, so like the United States history, it has a lot of subdivisions. So you going out to id.loc.gov and searching there and grabbing your long string. And if you copy it in, it'll just find the one you want. Okay. But we'll just grab this one for now and you select it and then it puts the ID in. Same rules apply. If I want to add another one, you just add another one. Okay. So that's how that works. And again, the local is just a box. You just key in your terms. All right. Personal names. Again, you can look up these vocabularies. You can look up the Library of Congress name authority file. We also have social networks and archival context. Use what you're familiar with in your institution. And then again, always local. You're going to have a lot of local names and we just recommend that you type them in last name.
Yeah, but I would definitely recommend doing the Library of Congress name authority file first, Michelle, because there's a lot of people in there that you might not expect that are local people. So
yep. Start there and then and SNAC will have a lot of do you know about SNAC?
No, I've never.
Okay, so SNAC is social networks and archival context. Some people refer to it as a Facebook for dead people, which I think is really funny. It's a national project. You can go to it. There's a website, the SNAC Cooperative. So what they're doing is archives are working together to create entries for the people and the corporations and the families associated with archival collections. So what SNAC is actually entries around those people, not the collections themselves, but about the creators and the subjects of these archival collections. And then from there, they link where there might be finding aids around them. So they have their people in here, but this, I wish I had a good example to show you. It's messy, right? They don't do a good job of kind of deduping. So they do have the same people in there multiple ways. I discovered this when we migrated. Let's see if we find more for Hamilton. Alexander. Okay, and this, just like the Library of Congress, you have to put in the punctuation. And this one, it doesn't want the punctuation. So you'll get used to it.
Oh, man.
And this just all has to do with how these systems deliver this data to us. We have no control over it. We have to use it the way it is. But you'll start to see that there are people in here multiple ways. But it is there for you if you want to use it. And you might find some of your local people in there. But the Library of Congress authority file is just cleaner. So it's not going to give you all the variants of a name. It's going to give you the one that you're.
Yeah. So SNAC still being updated.
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason I thought it was.
It's a big. It's a pretty big project. I think they've gotten more funding, and like I know one of my local archivists here is a contributor to SNAC. So it's just messy. You know, I'm grateful they released this data to us, but it's kind of messy to work with. So so that's that. And again, you can always do local. So corporate names are the same. You get all those same vocabularies. It works the same way. Family names, it's only SNAC. There's not a lot of family names in LC. There are some, but sometimes it's hard at that point to know if it's your Smith family, if it's, you know, so we didn't pull those in here, but SNAC has a lot of family names. And then of course you can do your local family names option. Okay.
You may have asked this, I don't know, but does it save the local vocabulary so you can go back to it?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
I love that content DM feature. That
Yes,
is
it's
great.
very nice. And it's something that I won't say it's necessarily on the roadmap, but it's on my list over here of things that we'd like to put on the roadmap. But I do think, and this might be a browser thing, like if your browser is set up to kind of remember things you've typed in the past, you might start to see them. Because I don't know if you've noticed as I've typed around, it's giving me things I've typed in the past. So you might start to see that here if your browser is designed to remember things that you've entered into form data. So that's where a local list can be helpful. So yeah, I would love for us to have that someday. Okay, geographic locations, again, same rules apply. You get LC, VOF, Wikidata. One thing we couldn't implement, and this will only really make sense to Lori because she used the old system. In the old system, we were able to look up from the geonames vocabulary. And the reason we couldn't do it here is because you have to pay for it. I'll just leave it at that. So we couldn't get it in here, but there is this other option. Like try LC, especially a lot of your stuff's going to be Saratoga Springs and it's in here, right? So you might not need geonames. So I'll just save us the time. Saratoga Springs. All right. So there you go. Okay. I'm sure you'll find Albany in here. I'm sure you'll find Schenectady and like other things. If you don't find a term, just get in touch with me and I'll walk you through geonames and how to actually use it within here. Because we do have this other vocabulary where you can go out and look up other standard vocabularies, but it's a little wonky and I'm not going to mess with that today. Just email me if you need that. Okay, but I do, we're almost done. I want to show you how formats and genres work because there's something a little wonky going on there too. And again, all the wonkiness is on their side. It's on the vocabulary side and not our side. So again, Library of Congress, genre form terms, and this is great and you can use it and it's got photographs and it's got stuff, okay? You also have the Getty Art and Architecture Thesaurus. Okay, so when you click on that, I just want to point you to the fact that you have two lookup options. This is such a huge, dense vocabulary that we gave you kind of a fuzzy search that is kind of keyword searchable and then an exact match. Because again, you only get 10 results. So if I'm down here and I do photographs, okay, this is the exact match, right? It shows you the whole hierarchy in your results. If I click on it, I'm just going to get photographs. And the reason we did this is because if we just had the one search box that was just kind of a free-for-all and I started typing photographs, I wouldn't just get regular photographs because there's so many terms that have photographs in it, right? So these are your two options. I don't know if you use the Art and Architecture Thesaurus. No. This is something, if you wanted to get into it, start with the LC. It's just much easier to work with. And also you also have your local options, right? So you can always do that. You can enter local terms, all right? If you want to start getting fancy with the Art and Architecture Thesaurus, call me and we'll have another session on that. But again, this is where you're going to index things that are in the collection, okay? So again, I showed you everything here, but we only ask you to assign one. So if you just come in and tag everything as Saratoga Springs, you've met our requirements, right, for this page. And then that's it. You have, you've created a finding aid that is compliant with like kind of our requirements. But over on page 4, these are all the other elements you could add to a finding aid. Okay, so if you always, you know, do an acquisition note, or if you want to talk about the custodial history, like how you got the collection, where it was before, things like that. And this is where you could give credit to people who worked on a collection. So if you have an intern who's doing some work, there's this processing information. And that's where you could say processed by, finding aid created by, you know, and then this is public. So if you want a resume booster and you're working on some collections, Michelle, you know, this is where you could put your name, or if you have an intern. Okay. Now I did want to show you, because you all do have stuff in New York Heritage, yes? Okay, so I want to show you most of these fields, except the one I'm going to show you right now, are free text fields. So you just key stuff into a paragraph. And if you need more than one paragraph, you click the plus sign. But you can link to your digital collections
This is
from here.
about.
Okay, so let's say you're describing this big, huge collection and you've digitized a portion of it. So again, coverage, you would say part, you know, and then it's derived. So it's physical collection, you scanned it. And then the title or the brief caption, see, it's remembering things I've keyed in the past. Jen's diaries. Okay. And then you can link. So the user will see this, and then behind it will be the link to the New York Heritage landing page to the diaries. Okay. If you've digitized the whole collection, then you do whole, and you know, it's the Jen collection. And you can say whatever you want here. Visit the Jen collection in New York Heritage, like whatever. Remember, this is what the user will see, right? And then you put your link. Okay. If you maybe have digitized 3 things from the collection, you could go ahead and list them all separately, right? And then again, you would do a part, because this is repeatable. And then you could say, you know, Jen's diary, map of Kerhonkson, like whatever you want to say, and they would be listed and linked. If you have more than one link, then you need to say whether all of those links together make up the whole or the part of the collection. And I'm sorry I'm asking you to do this, but it's all about adhering to a standard. And they ask us to do this. So I'm here to help you. So. All right. And so,
Well,
and
I mean,
again,
I think that's really helpful too, because people then they'll, you know, they just don't look at the finding aids that closely all the time, and then they can realize
that there's
there's
some
more
stuff
stuff that's not up there.
Right. And also, if you're going to do an inventory, which we're going to talk about next, you can link at the item level, like item to item or folder to folder. Like if you have an inventory and you have a folder of correspondence and you've digitized that, you can link to that correspondence in the inventory as well. So this is, you know, link here if it makes sense because you've digitized it, you know, a big portion of the collection or the whole collection, or if you're not doing an inventory. Okay, but let's talk about an inventory. That's next. All right. So, and you don't have to use that again. These are all optional elements. So you don't have to use any of them on this page 4. Use the ones that make sense as they make sense. Okay. All right. So let's talk about an inventory. And this is obviously where you say what's in the boxes or the drawers or whatever. And you have 2 options here. One is, so if you have an existing finding aid that has an inventory, you can just upload that file here. We recommend either a PDF or an Excel file. Okay. I think it does allow Word docs now. But if you can turn that Word doc into a PDF, that's probably better. Okay. So you would use this option here, this external file upload. You'd click choose file, you browse through your machine, you attach that PDF. Okay. And then I want to show you how that displays to the user. Okay. So I'm going to pull this finding aid over. So now we're on the front end, what the public sees. And right on the first page, they'll get this button that says container list. Okay. And they download it. All right. The information in these external files is not searchable at this time through the system. Okay. So just want you to know that. But that is one option if you already have one created and you don't want to repurpose it in our system. Now, let me throw this one over. If you want to do an inventory that actually displays online, and is searchable, which I'm going to show you right now. So we're looking at another finding aid online. And if you do option 2 for an inventory, which I'm going to show you in a minute, then your inventory displays under this contents tab. And it's all searchable. Okay, and it supports hierarchy. This one has 3 levels, and here's all the stuff. Okay, so in order to do this and have an inventory that works like this, you would use this second option. And we provide a spreadsheet template, and it's linked up here. We have an Excel version. We also have a Google Sheet version. I highly recommend working in Google Sheets if you can, because Google is just smarter than Excel. Excel can enter and encode. We have encoding issues. We have all kinds of things. Okay, so I'm going to launch this Google Sheet. Are you see? You're just seeing a square with my screen. The buttons with our faces are not blocking your view, right? Okay, they're blocking my view, but I keep moving you around. I just want to know if yours not. Okay, so when you launch the template, there's 2 tabs, and this is true for the Excel file as well. So it will default to a sample. So this is data filled in. This is an example, so you can refer to it. And you can overwrite this data, or you can click on the blank template and you can start from scratch and enter in your data. In either case, we do have some help tips up here for how to use these fields. It's also in the print documentation. I recommend when you're getting started using this to keep it simple at first. Let's go back and look at the example. So if you're going to do the inventory this way, at the very least, titles are required. Okay, so you have to have titles here. And these are your titles of your series, your subseries, your files, however you want to structure your finding, your inventory. And you don't have to be this granular. You can just have a series list if that's all you want. If it's a small collection of 30 items, you can have an item list. So you decide. And again, I'm here to help you. So if you want to do this and you get overwhelmed, just call me and we'll work through it with some real data of yours. All right, so titles are required here. If you do, and then also the level is required. So this is where you're going to say it's a series, it's a sub-series, it's a file. And even if you just have a straight list, if it's all series, you need to say series all the way down here. Okay, if it's all items, you need to say items all the way down here. And if you have, a structure, a hierarchy, then just indicate the levels. If it's a flat list, so no hierarchy, just one level, you do not need to use column A. But if you have hierarchy, you have to use column A. And what column A does, what these numbers are, and these numbers do not go into the data, they're just used by the system to identify the structure. And so what they are, these are row numbers, okay, of the parent. So series, in this case, series is my highest level. So I've got series here, okay? So there's nothing here. This subseries and this subseries are children of this series. So they get 2, okay? Because these are children of row 2. This can get confusing, but once you start to do it, you can get the hang of it. These files are children of this subseries. So they get row 3. Okay. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what people do is they'll do all of this first and then they'll come in at the end and do the numbers. Because if you're like, oops, I forgot a file, then your numbers, could get all thrown off. So that's how that works. Any questions about that? Makes enough sense.
Actually provide the number there.
We do not. When you start
you as a person completing fighting aid.
Yeah. So when you're going to start with your data, I mean, you can overwrite this data, but your numbers are going to look a lot different. Okay. I highly recommend just working with a blank slate and using this example to kind of reference, like, how should I enter these dates, right? Use it as kind of a guide. All right. So that's how those work. Okay. Dates are a little funky. So let me explain dates to you. Again, this is where I would keep it as simple as you can. Mm-hmm. So we have 2 date columns. This first column D, this is where you're going to do standard known dates. Okay. And if you have a date range, you have to separate them with a slash. Yep. Okay. Single date, single date. If you have, more granular dates, you got to use this format. And then you use column E when you have to again, express something that isn't standard or isn't known. This is actually, I'm going to let you know that I'm about to go on vacation and I wanted to have this done before I left, but we have discovered a need to have even more, to express even more crazy dates. So I have an updated template.
dates.
I hate dates too. I have an updated template that actually has yet another column for dates where we have to even be more crazier if we want inclusive dates and bulk dates, if you've got a string of dates and an unknown date. So until I can get that updated, if you're going to do this, pick a collection that's pretty simple and cut and dry, or fill in all of your known dates, leave things that are a little more complicated blank, maybe highlight that in yellow. And then you and I will talk before you upload. Okay. Because I got to update the documentation. I have to do a training. All of that's coming. This just came to anyway. So, but for right now, this is what you've got.
Sounds good.
Okay. And again, all that's really required here are titles, right? That's all you have to put here. And the level. Okay, you use column A when you got hierarchy. Dates are optional, but a lot of people do like to include them. So I want to run you through that. And then box and folder numbers. A lot of people do that as well. So this is how we do this. Again, because we have to feed this data into a system and we had to tell the system what to expect and what to do with it. So this is what we came up with for container information that frees you up to have your kind of container type. And then your container label be whatever you want them to be. And then you use an @ sign to separate them. Okay. And the @ sign does not go into the data. This just tells our system that this is a container and that's a label. All right. So you could say map drawer 5, hat box 1, oversized box, whatever you want to say, but separate your container type from your label with this @ sign. And then if you have kind of a parent-child container system, box and folders, these are very common, but there are some outliers, which is why we had to do it this way. Then you separate the parent and the child with a semicolon. Okay. So, and then here we have an example of, here is a file that kind of runs over 2 boxes. So again, I have my box 1, semicolon, folder 11 through 12, and then now 2 semicolons, because we have a whole new parent-child relationship. We have box 2, folder 1 and 2. Okay. So, and if it ran over 3 boxes, you don't need 3 semicolons, just 2 semicolons to separate each parent-child. Okay. All right. Okay, you can do scope and content notes at any level that you want. Again, you don't have to. This is all optional at this point, but we just gave you some examples. We also do have a general note element because sometimes your notes don't fit well into a scope and content note, but right now the front end system does not display general notes. So try to just put everything into scope and content. But we're hoping that we have the system we use for the front end wasn't developed by us, and there's a whole community around it. It's an open source system. So we have put in a request that they make more fields display. We're just waiting to be prioritized there. You can do an access note. So we kind of talked about access at the collection level, but this is where you could actually say like this folder is restricted right down at the component level. I would almost recommend doing it in both places, like at the access node at the collection level, saying box 5 is restricted, but then also putting it here just so they see it wherever they are in the finding aid. Okay, and then these columns here are shaded a color because in this case, if you use one of these pink ones, you have to use all of them. And a lot of people don't do this, but you could. This is where you could say that this file is 5 folders or something like that, or how big a series might be. It's 5 cubic feet or whatever. So we just have one example here, and this actually does both things. It says that, you know, it takes up 0.75 linear feet and it's in one box, but you don't have to do this. Okay. And then here's where you can link. So again, If you use one blue link, you have to use all of them. One blue column, you have to use all of them. But here's your sample. And this is where you can link it. You can only put one link in here. I hope I said that you can only put one. Yes, enter only one URL. So like if you had, you know, a map collection, 30 maps, and they were all digitized and you had an inventory here, you could link to each map. Okay. If you had a folder of stuff that was digitized, you can link to like the entire set here. But again, we have to say whether it's a whole or part of this unit being described. You know, just call me. I'll help you. So, but one link per, and but again, you can link right to an item level. You can link to a collection landing page, whatever makes sense here. All right. Whew, I'm tired. How about you? It's a lot. And one thing about these, so sometimes when people publish a collection and they wait the 2 days and they're not seeing anything, sometimes there's an error here. And that's what the problem is. It's really fussy with this date column. Like if you accidentally put a hyphen instead of a slash, it'll reject the whole thing. Okay, it really wants dates in this format. So that's one thing to troubleshoot. That's the main thing to troubleshoot is dates in your inventory. If you publish a finding aid and you don't see it online, there might be, but again, you can just call me. I went through one yesterday that had 450 rows, you know, like, and we found, you know, a couple of the date errors, and that's what it was. So I'm here to help you.
Thank you.
But I just kind of recommend if you're going to do this, just keep it simple to start. Pick some smaller collections, and anywhere you have questions, just get in touch with me. All right. So, wow, this took a long time, but that was a very thorough overview. Okay, I just want to go back quickly. So we're back here that we covered inventory. And again, inventory is optional. You do not have to do either of these, but these are your choices. You either use our template or you upload an external file. When you're ready to submit and save, it's a two-step process. So you click page 6 of the form. You click submit finding aid. And then you have to click this save button. Okay. And then it'll save it to your My Content page. And you can do this at any time, right? So if you're having a busy week or you're going on vacation and you're not finished with the finding aid, just come to page 6 and submit and save. It'll be on your My Content page and you can come back. If you're ready to publish, you can publish from here. Click this button. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to publish this one. Click save. Okay, and then this is your kind of back end view. This is what the finding aid looks like in the back end. And it has a unique URL, but this isn't the one we share to the public. This isn't the one that goes in your catalog. Okay, if I go to my content, you'll always see the last one you publish, the last one you saved first. So they're kind of in chronological, order based on how they were created. And from here, if I can select multiples and then apply to selected items, and now I've just published both of those. I'm trying to figure out where. Okay, so you have to select before you can delete, which is smart. Okay, so if you want to delete a finding aid, select one, and then you get the delete.
The thing that's weird is I feel like you did check it off prior. I don't know.
I'm not sure that I did. So I just went like
Okay.
this. Oh, wait, no, there it is now too. Okay, but because I had it selected, systems is a little wonky, but it works.
So just like go back and try it later.
Right. And one
You
thing
wanna
we
delete
did,
it.
yeah, one thing we did disable is the batch deleting from here, because we just,
Good. Yeah, good.
you know, we're trying to save you from yourselves. One thing to know is that me as an admin and also Susan as an admin, there is a revision history that gets stored with these, but only admins have access to it right now. So if you're like, oh, we had an intern come in and they made a huge mess of this finding aid, we can go back into the revision history and we can revert back to a previous,
Good.
you know, it has every time someone came in and did something, we can go back to a previous version if needed. Once your collection gets really long, you can search. I have a lot of gens in my test collection, so so you can search to find what you want. And again, at any time, so from here you can publish, you can unpublish, you can delete, and you can go in and edit it. It'll launch it right back in the form. You can make any edits you need. Okay. Any questions?
Not yet.
Okay.
No, every
Not
time.
until I go to open it and do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, every time I see it, there's something a little better about it. So
Yeah.
every
It's,
Right, I
time.
it's
really wanna-
always a work in progress.
Oh.
Again, the next thing is to kind of give you guys another way to just do all the crazy dates you need to do. So that's
Just like
coming.
the people should only be allowed to date things. Like when you create anything, you should only be able to allow to date it a certain way. Just like institutions should not be allowed to change their name because it really messes up New York heritage.
Yeah, I've noticed the latest is like the
Flashy.
such and such historical going to historic whatever, like
Yeah,
Geneva
yeah.
Historical Society is now Historic Geneva. Like a lot of people, that's kind of where they're going. So we've had a lot of name changes recently.
Which whatever. Well, yeah, Rensselaer County Historical Society became Hart-Cluett Mansion, which I don't really understand because that's like so much less expansive. It makes it sound like it's just the building. So whatever. But a lot of institutions in my region have been changing their names in the past couple of years. So
It's a thing, which is why we store the repository information separate in the front end. So we only have to update it once. All right. So just to kind of circle back around and keep things at its very basic level, when you first log in, tools at EmpireADC Finding Aid, and you're on your way.
yay.
That's a good place to start.
Yes. So I'm going to stop sharing. And we are here to help you. Okay. So if you have a question, you know, it might be
Especially
good just
Jen
to
is here to
email.
help
Yes. I'm more of like your technical support
backup.
right now. But if you do email me, just copy Susan in, just so
Mhm.
she's aware of
Yeah.
the kind of questions that are coming in. And if it's more on the intellectual side, she can weigh in on those. But I'm here to help you with the technical stuff. I'm going to send you an email right now, because if you're going to get started right away, I am on vacation for the next, 12 days. So I'm going to send you the email of Zach, who works here at Southeastern. He's our systems manager. He knows the system well. And if you have any trouble, he can help you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, and I will also throw this video up on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I hope you have a great vacation. That sounds
know,
wonderful. 12
absolutely.
days.
Thanks.
Are you feeling okay? Any long-term problems for you? Oh, excellent.
Nope.